best of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz, starring all things football. Stugotz mistakes Jake Owen for Aaron Rodgers, with former NFLer Mike Golick Sr. and country singer Jake Owen.
You are now aware of the amazing mistake that I have made here this week, where I had a 20-minute conversation with a guy that I thought was Aaron Rodgers, thought was my quarterback, but it was not. It was Jake Owen. So have at it. Go ahead. I deserve it.
I don't even know what to say. So when I sat down at the players' meeting, Jack Wagner was on my right, and on my left was Jake Owen and Marty Fish.
Right.
And they proceeded to tell me that story, to which I'm thinking, you're a sports person, you're a Jets fan, you know who Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers has been on your friggin' show.
I've hugged Aaron Rodgers.
And you actually thought Jake Owen was Aaron Rodgers. And kudos to him for playing along with it. Because he had to be thinking you're the biggest tool in the world, which you are.
Yeah, thank you.
It was stunning to me.
Yeah.
They don't even have the same haircut now, by the way.
Well, listen, in my defense, Jake Owen says that happens to him all the time. And in my defense, when we did the interview with Jake Owen, that's going to air on this week's episode of God Bless Football, the second he got up from this inflatable couch, there was a kid waiting there, okay, with an Aaron Rodgers jersey wanting Aaron's autograph.
There is no, in your defense, look alike. A kid doing that is fine. Someone who's been in the sports world for decades, there is no shot that that's acceptable or, in my defense, worthy.
He looks like him, though.
Oh, stop. You know who Jake Owen is.
Yeah, so Jake Owen, he really sunk into it.
He did. Kudos to him for that.
He decided a minute or two in, hey, I'm
going to play. I'm going to roll. Because there's some big time people who wouldn't have. They might have been offended. Kudos to him. What a good dude.
But now that I've had time, now that I know what happened, right? So I've had time to think back at the actual conversation that he's had. The fact that I stared at Jake Owen and looked at him and said, "Hey, you're my quarterback," and he looked back at me and said, "I am your quarterback," and then I hugged him.
So at what point? Mike. What I want to know, at what point did he realize you weren't just joking around and you were serious, and then he decided to play along with it?
I think Marty kind of tipped him off, just roll with it, because Marty's really good friends with me. And,
yeah.
And he's
all right, our next guest, I've had sleepless nights. I mean, I was up all night. I've been thinking about this all night. I've been running through the entire conversation I had with Jake Owen, who I thought was Aaron Rodgers yesterday on the driving range. I am mortified, but sometimes, listen, you got to face your demons. And right now, I am facing one of my many demons. Jake Owen is with us.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if you would have ever even had me on your show in general if you hadn't have thought I was Aaron Rodgers.
No, we were going to get to you because we're really good friends with Marty. I consider Marty one of our best friends, and the fact that Marty let this go for 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm mad at him.
Yeah. I think Marty didn't even realize either what was going on until he did catch on, and then he just played along with it.
Of course. But Jake, to be honest with you, you're the target this week. You're the guest that we wanted on. If my choice was you or actually Aaron Rodgers, we would choose you. So
thank you.
Thank you for sinking into it the way you did yesterday on the driving range.
Yeah, so we were on the driving range yesterday, and old Johnny comes over and he's like, "You were really fired up to see me, and I had no idea who you were." And so I was, and no offense, but you just kind of caught me off guard. And in these type of situations, when a lot of guys will come, "Hey man, how have you been?" And you get in that, "I'm great, man. How have you been?" And so at that moment is when Marty said, "How do you guys know each other?" And I had no way to tell you because I didn't know you, so I just threw it out there. I was like, "Man, tell Marty how we know each other." Perfect. And Johnny's like, "You've been on our show 5 times."
At what point in our conversation did you decide, hey, I'm just going to sink into this?
Well, I didn't know yet that you thought I was Aaron Rodgers. I just thought you knew me until you said word for word.
Yeah.
You started creeping me out a little bit. Because you're like, "Oh my God, dude, I'm seriously it went from an open conversation to you leaning in, whispering to me.
That's how it works.
About things that I had no idea what you were talking about. And you're like, yo, man, we are so fired up about you coming to New York City, bro. And at that moment, I realized, I was like, oh, he thinks I'm Aaron Rodgers. And so at that point, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to come to New York, man.
Yep, leaned right into it.
Yeah, I leaned into it.
How about the part where I asked you about mushrooms?
Yeah, I didn't know if I could say that. Yeah, totally. You're like, what about those mushrooms, bro? Like, whatever.
I was telling you my last 2 weeks on tour with the dad.
I love mushrooms, so I was like, okay, maybe we do know each other.
So you started having a lot of fun with it. I got like the other angle from Marty on it, where there was a lot of nonverbal communication.
Well, you walked off, and Marty's like, did he think you were Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
I said, I think so.
What's great about that conversation happening with you guys is the moment he walked away from you, I walked up to him and he's like, brother, I got my quarterback. And I'm looking around because I knew Rodgers was on the course earlier, was on the driving range.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, yeah, you must have got him. But I turned to our video producer, Lewis, and I was like, Jake Owen looks a little like Aaron Rodgers. There's no way that's and we
this has
all
happened
agreed.
before, right?
There's
In my
no
defense,
way.
Time out. Jason Worth just said. Jason Worth said that he did.
Jason Worth said
was
anything.
my first year here, and Aaron was obviously here last year too, and Aaron's hair was longer like mine. And there were so many times I was coming down the fairway and people were screaming, Aaron, Aaron. And I'm not going to acknowledge it that I'm Aaron, but this one kid, man, he was running at me with like a Green Bay jersey. And he's like, Aaron, Aaron, Aaron. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, should I like pretend? And then this guy's like, that's not Aaron Rodgers. And the kid just looked at me and he was deflated. I was like, I'm Jake Owen though, bro. Sign that.
I'll sign your Aaron
He's like,
Rodgers
whatever,
jersey.
loser.
Multiple number ones, so like it's still a pretty
But
cool
hey,
story
man,
to tell.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, thanks for thinking I'm a lot more famous than I am.
How about the moment though where I stared at you? I said, "You're my quarterback."
You did. It was
You
a
said
little
back
weird.
to me though.
No.
This is
You-
when you sunk it. You're like, "I'm your quarterback."
I'm your
And I
guy.
go, "You're your quarterback." You're like, "I'm your guy."
I'm your guy.
And then
I'm
I
your
hugged
guy.
you.
Yeah, you hugged me. Now you hugged me a couple times more than you should have hugged me. Like I was like, all right, we already hugged.
It's a little unsettling that if he actually knew Aaron Rodgers, he'd treat Aaron Rodgers that way too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I started thinking about that. I was like, man, like Aaron Rodgers is a funky guy to get to know. He's great, funny, and whatever, but he's not like touchy-feely, you gotta whatever. And you were really touchy-feely for thinking that I was Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, maybe you guys have a weird thing or something.
The 2 times that I met Aaron Rodgers, there's been a huge embrace. We have hugged each other. We have had conversation. It's been nice. Like, I'm a Jet fan. He's on our show a lot.
I
Now he's
told
my
him the
quarterback.
story this
You're my
morning. when we
quarterback.
teed
You
off.
did.
Yeah,
I told him.
you did.
He-
Did you?
he
And what was his
laughed.
reaction?
Well, he laughed, and then in true Aaron Rodgers fashion, he looked at me. He's like, Jake, though, you really do look good, though, man. He's like, what are you, 50 now?
Oh, man.
come
I know. I was like,
man.
no, I'm not. But it was funny.
Jake, I can understand how a little kid comes up to you. You when you're little, everyone seems larger than life. I can understand how a little kid thinks that you might be Aaron Rodgers.
Well, it's like I just said. Like when a little kid comes up to you and he's excited, you want to crush a little kid's
Yeah.
dreams.
Right.
So, yeah.
I went
That's
along
what
with
you were
it.
doing. Is that what you were doing? Yeah, really?
Scott works in sports. He's
crushed
made
my
his
entire
living
weekend.
in sports.
Well, I was like, did you really think? Like 100, no doubt in your mind, you thought I was Aaron
1,000%.
Rodgers.
Yeah, I said
Were you
this-
drunk yesterday?
No,
He was totally sober, but coming off a bender at the Gorge. I gotta tell
He's
you.
in between dead shows.
You said that. Yeah. You're like, I was just out at the Gorge, which is why I thought you knew me because I play music and I played at the Gorge. So I was like, oh, he does know. I don't know.
So he came back to us,
Right.
and he's like, wow, we had the greatest
That guy
conversation.
has a job over there?
I'm like, now that he's a Jet, he's
sports.
treating me differently.
Right, that's exactly what you said.
Here's what he said word for word. It was like he was a totally different person, Mike. He's so chummy.
And I said earlier this morning, I'll never have a relationship with Aaron like the relationship I had with the guy who I thought was Aaron Rodgers.
he was like,
You were way too nice to me.
Well,
man.
like I told you earlier, I'm in a profession where I don't just have to be nice to people, but I've got a great mom and dad, man, and I was raised to just be kind to people. I think the world needs more kindness, and
Yeah.
so when you came up fired up, I was like, I'm not gonna.
I'm just gonna be nice to this
Be
guy.
nice to this guy.
That's a laid back Vero in Jake
Yeah,
Owen.
it is.
But one of the things that stuck with me was that he said Aaron's in great shape, and you are in great shape.
I kept pointing to you. I'm like, look at the blue pants.
You are in great shape, but you're also 150 pounds and 5'9". You are not NFL quarterback shape.
I'm like 6'2".
Yeah.
6'2". I mean, my
Thank
driver's
you.
license says
Thank you.
6'3".
Be a
That's
top
a
5 Jet
driver's
quarterback
license.
of all time anyway.
right.
You are not anywhere near professional athlete size at that
Hey,
position.
easy. Don't insult him.
It's not insulting.
I mean, I was complimenting
I'm not
him.
insulted at all, but I am gonna win this week. So
Ooh.
if you guys want to talk about that,
yeah,
We do want to talk
I did
about
draft
that. How
you.
is your golf game?
I did draft you. So you got
my
to.
golf game is good enough. to win. I think I just have to put it all together. I've got the greatest caddy in the world, my dad, caddying for me.
That's
so,
awesome.
As long as he keeps my head straight. And
Hey, Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. Won't you be my neighbor?
Sorry, Jake, sorry. But keep going. I want to hear. Talk about the golf game.
It was just I feel like I got a pretty decent chance. I played pretty well last year for my first year. I never saw the course, and I finished I think top 10. And I don't say this arrogantly, but you have to come into it. I didn't just show up here to just have a good time. I really do. I've always been a competitor, and I love that this tournament is full of guys that made a living being competitive. So no matter what, that everybody's going to be grinding, and we're all trying to win. So I'm not afraid to tell you that I'm doing the same.
How do you view being a competitor as a songwriter and a performer in the same way that these guys are competitors as athletes? Do you think it's that same sort of competitive edge?
Yeah, totally. When you're an open, I told people this before, when I used to open shows before I became a headliner.
Right.
I was opening for everybody from Kenny Chesney to you name it, Keith Urban and everyone. And I never went out there thinking I'm going to try to just get people to enjoy the show. I went out there every night going, I want them to like me better than Kenny Chesney. Yeah. And it wasn't being negative, but I just was always trying to show someone up. And I think that's part of being competitive.
That's cool. That's like the Michael Jordan. There's always going to be somebody here who's the first time seeing Michael Jordan. So he always knew he wanted to put on a show because he was like, somebody in this building has never seen me, and they're going to know I'm the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah.